Well, welcome to the 1334 podcast. Today, I'm joined with the one and only Tab Howell. Tab, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and making time to do this. I know you have a busy schedule, Blake, so I really appreciate that. I also appreciate Jay Sharp kind of introducing us. So tell you a little bit about me and my family. My wife, Candace, and I have been married this December will be 22 years.
Congrats.
And we have two boys. We have Noah, who's our oldest, and this January he will be 20 years old. And we have a Titus, who is just a freshman wrestler in college. He's just been there about 6 to 8 weeks now.
Awesome.
And doing amazing in all ways. Super proud about how he's doing so far. Back to about my family though. So that's our boys, and Noah is autistic. Matter of fact, he is severely autistic. He has to be, just got to give you an example. What does that mean? He's almost 20 years old and he has to be one-on-one 24 hours a day. So that doesn't matter if you're at church or the grocery store or at home or wherever. It doesn't matter. He has to have somebody right there because he's a danger to elope. And he also has pica real bad. So those are both safety issues. Elope obviously means if you take off at a drop of a hat and run down the street, and he has really no safety awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then pica, because if I didn't have an autistic son, I wouldn't know what these terms mean. Pica means he will put anything in his mouth. Okay. And probably 99% of things in this world does not belong in your mouth. Yeah. And he will swallow them. And we've had to go to the hospital and have his stomach pumped and these different times. Yeah. Every fun challenges, those kind of things. So that's kind of our family. I'm originally from Albany, Georgia. My wife's a Texan, and I'm in the ministry, been in the ministry for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. And we have kind of moved around. I've pastored churches in Georgia, got hired to move out to Colorado to work for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Out there a few years, never been there before until we moved out there, had an amazing experience with FCA. Mm-hmm. And actually, a lot of what we do today, and we're just kicking off our 6th year with Noah's ministry, we do today are what FCA had trained me to do, how to do with FCA.
Oh, really?
Just the practical fundraising, ministry, these kind of things. I learned it all from FCA, from my boss, John Adams, out there, and I just kind of plug and play from day one. Yeah. And very grateful for God allowing me to go through that experience of being out there. Having John as a boss taught me tremendously. I will always be eternally grateful for him and his investment in my life.
Can you explain a little bit about, I'm really interested in the education side of Noah's ministry, but could you explain a little bit about Noah's ministry?
Sure, absolutely. So Noah's ministry, obviously named after our son Noah. And so a little over 5 years ago, and it was the summer of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, mm-hmm. My family felt called to leave FCA, leave Colorado, start a brand new ministry called Noah's Ministry, and move to Texas. And so that's what we did. And it's a 501c3 organization. And we moved here, and about the next month after we moved here, of July of 2020, we started Noah's Ministry. Awesome. And Noah's Ministry primarily has two focal points. We work with special needs families, trying to learn about that individual family and see how can we come up with a plan to help the daily functionality of their home, to improve their functionality, which we hope will help the stress level, and also hopefully that we gain some influence, be able to love on them, make real connections with them. Because we're a ministry and we want to meet your physical needs as a tool to tell you why we do what we do. Yeah. And in our world, Blake, I don't know how familiar you were with when I referred to our world, I'm talking about the special needs families world. The people group that I'm part of, you can feel really lonely. And you can feel like, I mean, I could spend 3 days telling you about tough stories.
Yeah.
And you can feel like, man, if God is real, he doesn't like me very much. And so one thing that every now and then God gives me a truth and he lets me hold on to it forever because it'll benefit and bless my life as I believe it and obey it for years to come. And one of those truths is something I learned from Henry Blackaby years ago. And I share this counsel and I apply it to my life. You can never allow your circumstances to affect the way you view God's character.
Yeah.
Because, after, so many trips to the hospital with Noah, I'm starting to think, man, God might not like me very much because this is hard.
Yeah.
But you have to go back to the Bible. What does the Bible say about God's character?
Mm-hmm.
And choose to say, that's how I view God's character. That's how I view it. What the Bible says that I was created in his image. John 3:16 tells me all I need to know about how much does God love me. Yeah. Not this tough circumstance. And those kind of things. So we try to do our best to help that family, encourage them, and try to meet practical needs. Sometimes we come in and they're having some issues because in a special needs home, our kiddos can be really tough on your house. They can be really tough on sheetrock. They can be really tough just on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we'll come in and we'll pack sheetrock, or we'll do this or that, just trying to help stress level. And just let them know that it's okay. We put in cameras. It's just whatever needs we can do to help that family. The other target that we have and with Noah's ministry is we work with the local church, how to start or how to grow a special needs ministry that you already have.
Yeah.
And that's not cookie cutter. We come in, we see what they want to do, what resources they have, and let's come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And we've worked with all size churches and different denominations and all these kind of things. And I kind of give them these 4 pillars that we have to knock out of the park. And as number one is, you have to promise the special needs family, if you're going to start a special needs ministry, you got to promise them that, one, your child will be safe. And there's a lot involved in that safety. Just that one pillar is a lot in there. But you have to be able to make that promise. You don't want them sitting in the sanctuary stressed out. What's going on in the back or whatever. Number 2, a promise we have to make is your child will be loved. They will be loved. We're not here just to be here or whatever the case may be. They will be loved, and because to the level that child can process and understand, we want to make a heart connection with that child. The third promise we want to make is the environment. This can be tricky in our world. The environment that your child will be in will be clean.
Yeah.
Because remember, my son has pica. Everything goes in his mouth. Every toy, every not toy, everything goes. So you got to make sure everything's clean, not just for him, but for whoever. These kind of things. And that's a real stressor, especially for families like mine. And the fourth thing is, this is not babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
How can we meet that one, like my son, how can we connect with my one son and disciple him? Which will be a different strategy, a different level than this more higher function special needs child over here. Mm-hmm. So how can we make sure that they're getting discipled and not just babysitting? Because we're called to, no matter what people group or disability, the Bible makes it clear, there's no exception, we're called to make disciples. We're called to meet people where they are, be a tool that God can use to take them from where they are spiritually and move them over here at their own pace and everything. And I can unpack that more. Noah's almost 20. How do y'all do that with Noah? And you might be surprised. And I can kind of unpack the philosophy behind that and those kind of things. But we just want to step in and say, because let me share this with you. Roughly 84% of your churches in America, and I don't know how many churches are in America, but roughly 84% of them have nothing, no special needs ministry at all. So if you go to a church and they have some form, whatever, any form of special needs ministry, they're in that small 16%.
How
But
many?
could be anything, right?
So how many special needs families are there in the U.S.? If only 16% of churches are prepared for special needs families, how many special needs families are there? Like how great is that need?
Yeah, it's great. Well, I can tell you, I'll answer that question in two different ways. One is roughly, and this percentage works pretty much whatever area you're looking at. If you're talking about Atlanta or Dallas or wherever, roughly around 11 to 15% of your population, so whatever you're looking at, it has a disability. Now, you go inside that, so say you're looking at an area of 100,000, so that's somewhere between 11 to 15,000. Now, in that 11 to 15,000, that counts the person. That would count my son. No, that didn't count mom, dad, siblings, or caregivers,
grandparents, everybody.
Yeah. So that number is much bigger than that actual number. Here's another thing: 80% of those folks, that 11 to 15% are unchurched. 80% of those folks who are disabled are unchurched. Yeah. So we're always talking about in churches, and rightfully so, how to reach the unreached people group and all these kind of things, and go giving to Africa. And I'm all about giving to Africa and Haiti and all this stuff, and I think that's great, and it honors Jesus, and it's Acts 1:8. But here's a almost untapped people group in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe a question might arise is, man, at least in Texas and the South, we got a church on every corner, right? And if you're telling me somewhere between 11 to 15%, and we're all trying to do the math, my area, the population is roughly what? So what's 50, all that kind of stuff. At 80%, what's 80% of that number and all this kind of stuff? And how many churches we have? And that doesn't make sense, and I agree. Yeah. And I would say this. So why is the number 84% has nothing? Because it's uncomfortable.
Yep. So how difficult is it? If it's very uncomfortable, but how, I would have to imagine that you had your 4 pillars, but I'd have to imagine that just with a little bit of intentionality, it can't be that difficult to meet somebody where they are.
I love it, Blake. I need to get you to a video so I can post it, man. Charge some folks up. I love it. You're 100% right, Blake, and I appreciate a guy like you that I'm going to make an assumption doesn't have a special needs kid or a cousin or a sibling.
I grew up with, and he's like a brother to me. His family adopted, at the time we were growing up, they had 4 special needs kids.
Oh, cool.
And I believe they've adopted 2 more. So I grew up around, they have every area of special needs, from autism to limb disabilities and everything. So I grew up around a lot of it, but it wasn't one of those things where it's like as personal as my kid or as personal as my sibling, because at the end of the day, he's my friend and I'm going home. You know what I mean?
You put it perfectly. You've put it perfectly. At the end of the day, I can step into their world and say, hey, I love on them and won't great and pray for. But then there comes a point that I go to my world and I check out, where the family, there's no check out,
Yeah.
And they'll say, man, Blake, you're a sharp guy. I'm telling you, I'm already impressed.
It's the coffee is all it is.
There you go, man. It's good brand. Yeah. And so here's something a couple things. So when I said 16% of churches have any form, right? But inside that 16%, if I call a lot of those churches, say, hey, I hear you got a special needs ministry. Tell me about it. Let me tell you about the dynamics of my family. Would you have something this Sunday if I brought my son? I kind of describe my son to these guys. And I promise you, out of that 16% has any form, I have experienced this. Many of them say, they say, Mr. Howell, we can't meet his needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've learned through Noah's ministry to say, I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't lie.
I say the first step to growth, you got to own where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Then I say either A, what is your plan? And even if I come along and help you build a plan and carry
Yes.
but will you have a plan that if you get a phone call like this 2 years from now, you can say, hey, we can meet his needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the disconnect is. I'm working on a message that I'm presenting to a church here next month about special needs ministry, and the title will be church must have a discipleship vision. And I tied in their vision, I taught different things. And so then one of the things I'm thinking versus I'm kind of contrast the wrong word, kind of a fork in the road of two verses that I love to use all the time. I think it's a blind spot, but a lot of churches fall on this verse and they never let it carry over to this verse. And here's the two verses. One is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave, he sacrificed his unique, one-of-a-kind son that we may have. For God so loved the world that we may not perish but have everlasting life. And I get that from churches that say, we can't meet his needs. But we certainly pray and certainly hope you find a church to meet your needs, your family's needs. We want to see that. They never carry over to becoming 1 John 3:16. Blake, do you know what 1 John 3:16 says?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, that was an unfair question. I'm sorry. I know, I totally get it. That was obnoxious of me. I apologize. And the first part of that verse of 1 John 3:16, it gives a summary of John 3:16. He said, we know love by this, that he laid down his life for us, right? Mm-hmm. But it goes on to say this, and it's talking to us. He says, now you go and lay down your life for your brother.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so we go from John 3:16 saying, man, as a Christian, I want your family to find a church that'll love on you and invest in. We can't be that church, but they never say, hey, let's step out on faith and let us be that church.
So how does he?
They never. A lot of them fall in that category of like, it's uncomfortable. We're not being forced to. We don't have enough folks in our church, kind of bringing it up and these kind of things. I'll tell you this story. I've got a friend of mine who's a pastor in a church in Mississippi. Much detail I'll give. And we were literally just on the phone maybe 4 weeks ago having this conversation. And he told me, he said, man, Tal, if a special needs family from our community comes to our church, I promise you we will meet their needs. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen, right? Problem solved, bro. This kind of thing. And I love all that. And we won't turn them away. And then, we'll start here, we'll build and keep growing, and, we'll work out the kinks and those kind of things. And I said, man, that's great. That puts you in that 16% right there. If you ever kick that off, you'll be in that small percentage. I said, well, what's your plan for like some kind of community outreach to reach special needs families in your community that are unchurched? Remember, 80% are of unchurched. And these kind of, he's like, man, Tab, if they come in, we're going to handle it. And I said, oh, well, let me ask you a question. So every summer when you have youth camp, you tell your kids, don't invite your unchurched friends to come. If they show up on their own, then we won't turn them away. But don't invite them. You don't do that. You don't have like Tuesday night visitation. You don't believe in evangelism and outreach. Well, yeah. So help me understand, why would this people group be any different?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a little unfair. I kind of walked him into that. And he loves Jesus and these kind of things, but a little unfair. And I'm coming from my world, and I'm trying to introduce it to his world, and I'm challenging some thinking and those kind of things. But why is it that we would get our youth to invite their youth friends and those kind of things, but we somehow say, well, they bet if they show up, because it's hard.
Yep.
And it's messy. And listen, there's a cutoff, and I've experienced, I was almost a parent to a 20-year-old. When he was little, he was easier to deal with, handle, right? And he was cuter, right? And so it's easier to find volunteers when they're little because they're easier to handle, and they're cute, and these kind of things. Special needs or not special needs, people like helping their children, those kind of things. But when they get big, they're not as cute, and they're not as easy, and especially and Noah's IQ is about a 2.5-year-old. So if you can imagine a toddler who likes to get into everything, but in a 20-year-old man's body, that's our day-to-day.
Yeah.
Who's nonverbal. And so it's just it's hard. That's why.
So I've got a couple questions. First question is so I see that there's a really big consumer mindset as far as churches go. You see people all the time, they go to one church and they're like, well, I didn't like this about it. So they go to another church. Well, I didn't like the way he spoke on Sunday. Let me go to another church. And so they church
hop. We look for our internet provider.
Yep.
I'm with
but then you also have where there's actually a need that has to be met for this family. So they aren't exactly church hopping. They're trying to find a church that can actually meet a legitimate need. Almost as if your church doesn't accept people who recently got sober. Like, that just doesn't make sense. You have a guy who's 60 days sober, and you're not going to accept him? That just doesn't make sense. He's got a need. He needs community. Your son has a need. He needs community. You guys need community. So what do you mean you're not going to meet this need, you know? So how would you balance that, I guess the dichotomy between the consumer mindset, but also I actually have a need that needs to be met?
You mean that? How would I talk to a church and their staff about how the perspective they need, and let them hear from a family? This is what we're dealing with.
The family themselves, if they're listening and they're like, I want to go to a church, I believe in Jesus, I want to go somewhere, but I can't find it. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be that guy that's just hopping around churches. You know, what would you say to that family that's actively searching, actively trying to find the right place to be?
Okay. Well, off the top of my head, I think I would say, hey, the mentally toughest people I know are special needs families. Some of the best problem solvers I know are special needs families. And so I start off by saying that to say this. Your family, because of John 3:16, is, as you already know, is worth fighting for.
Yep.
And their spiritual health and their unity in a church family is worth fighting for. And the church may or may not understand this at the moment also. As much as you need a church family, they need you.
Yep.
They need you. And because that's what the Bible teaches. And so you not only would you be benefiting fighting to find the church for your family, but you'll be benefiting that church that is blessed enough to have you. You go and you take your gifts God give you and use them. And let me just tell you, and special needs families know this, my son Noah, just like these other kids, man, when we start a special needs class in the church, I love watching the guys take what God's given them with help and use it and watch them grow. It's amazing. Man, it's a blessing in that church to watch these special needs people take what they do, enjoy it, meet them where they're at, and watch them grow. You look back and, like this past Sunday, I was there, and I this kid that we've been working with for 6 months, he's so much further along now, just understanding some of the Bible story. I was like, that's amazing. I was talking to his grandma. I was like, that's amazing. He's like, I don't remember him having that kind of insight a few months ago. No. So I would say that, and also I would say this: God cares. God has a plan. And one of the reasons why you have this hunger, even though that might be mixed with frustration, have this hunger to find a church, is because God put it there. And God's fully aware of your family's dynamic, and He has a church for you just as much as He does if your family wasn't special needs and they need a church. And one of the things, the benefit you'll be for not just your family, but for all churches that know about your family is, hey, we've got families out here that need us.
Yeah.
Are we going to be John 3:16 or are we going to not?
Yep.
And I think sometimes God uses families like mine to say, hey, church, here's a crossroad. Are you going to walk by faith or are you going to walk by sight?
Mm-hmm.
And those kind of things. And I think God uses that. And I think one of the reasons why we have Noah is to call people and to say, be a prophetic voice and say, hey, the Bible says this.
Yep.
We're not going to argue what the Great Commission is. Now, how does it apply with your church and my family's dynamics?
Yeah.
the fork in the
Can
road.
you
So go ahead.
can you walk me through so I know your son's story, but can you walk me through a little bit about some of the things you actually do for these churches? So I know you mentioned your 4 pillars, but can you walk me through some of the disabilities that you are really intentional about, like even if it's something as simple as ramps, like make sure you've got a way for somebody to actually get in. I have a really good friend of mine. His son has cerebral palsy. He was and he is a brilliant kid, but he's in a wheelchair. So he doesn't really have a choice. He has to make sure he goes to a church that he can actually go into.
Absolutely.
And so it might sound simple. Hey, do you have steps, or can I actually get this chair in? You know what I mean? But something just as small and simple as that, like I'm sure that's one of the things you're looking out for. But what other things are you looking for to make sure that a church is ready?
Yeah. So I love that you use the wheelchair, because my wife says this often to churches when we speak, is special needs families are not asking for something special.
Yeah.
They're just asking, will you meet, to talk about like your example, your friend, will you meet my need so I can have the same access as everybody else?
Yeah.
Everybody else can walk up the steps and get in. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a ramp. That doesn't make me special. I'm not asking for something special. I'm just asking for a tool so I can have the same access.
Yep.
And the same kind of philosophy with special needs ministry. So we start out by helping the church have a good questionnaire, because it gives you a good snapshot from the mom and dad about, the situations about allergies, what they've diagnosed with. Even in our questionnaire, we'll say, hey, what are some of his behaviors or her behaviors when things aren't going their way? What are some triggers that you've noticed? Because listen, the best coach is mom and dad. What are some triggers you noticed before they had these behaviors? What are the behaviors? And then what's been some best practice you've redirected them? Mm-hmm. And then how do you know? Because sometimes you're like, hey, right now we can't redirect. We just got to keep them safe. In a few minutes, this will pass, and these kind of things. And then also in there is, how do we know? Help me understand, Mom, Dad, when this behavior is just frustration versus they're trying to hurt themselves, or they're trying to do behaviors that might be a real issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let me just give you a quick example. My son is nonverbal, pretty much nonverbal, but he still communicates. Yeah. And so he communicates by his nonverbal skills, right? And these kind of things. And so if a person is upset about something, they'll go and tell you, hey, I don't like this is why, right? Yeah. And if you seem like you're not paying them attention or you don't care, they might raise their voice. They might get in your face and these kind of things. Well, how does my son do that? He uses some nonverbal ways to try to communicate. If they're not registering with me, then he might get in my face. He might raise his voice. He might grab me by the arm and pull me. All he's trying to do is same as he could communicate. I mean, that is how he communicates. So you just try to say, hey, Mom, Dad, help me understand what you've learned, best practices, and these kind of things. And so the questionnaire helps a lot.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then we also trained with the volunteers, and we go through that process of kind of basically say if they redirected and these kind of things. And then we also see, like a lot of churches, when they reach out to us, it's because they have a special needs family or two that's coming somewhat consistent in their church. And we've seen these kind of problems, right? Okay. And so now we have to go in this, okay, tell me about it. Then we kind of get the mom to walk through the questionnaire. Say, okay, it looks like they're this age with this problem. What are some things y'all practice, these kind of things? And we just kind of coach the volunteers through, do this, do that.
What are some of the most common problems that you see?
Well, if you mean just in general, because, there's a lot of different special needs. There's Down syndrome, there's autism, but even like you say, autism, man, there's the spectrum of speed, right? So it's like you met one special needs person, you just met one because they're off. But a lot of it is and it's rightfully so, it's trial and error. The volunteers are uncomfortable and they're stepping out by faith, trying to let God use them. And so any behavior issue is petty. And so you had a lot of things. First, you kind of work through, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You know, you come up with a plan. So, okay. I tell them, it's talking about one of the pillars, safety, okay? I said, you have to have a safety plan, what I call from parking lot to parking lot. Meaning, what's your safety plan when they park the car and get out of the car to come into church? Every step they're going to take. All right, is those areas clean? Is those areas safe? How are you going to keep him or her out of areas you don't want them to be, right? What areas they're going to be in? Therefore, how are you going to keep them from cutting free and running out this wrong doors and these kind of, and you got to have that plan all the way back to the car. And those can, when you hand it back off to mom and dad and those kind of things. So we just kind of walk through those things. Another thing is, and this comes with practice and these kind of things, especially if they don't have a lot of experience with especially these people before this, is how do you know, how can you read if they're having a bad day versus, hey, they're just frustrated and they're trying to get out of it? Because one of the reasons, just like I would do or anybody would do, my son would do, is if I don't want to do something, I'm gonna have a behavior.
Yeah.
And if
I'm not gonna be happy about it.
Communicate my behavior, I'm gonna communicate a different way. And maybe like my son will sometimes will indicate that he needs to go to the restroom. And it could be true that he needs to go to the restroom, or it could be I don't want to do this task and I want to get away. And I know if I indicate this, I can get away for a few minutes.
What my son's been doing when he goes to sleep is, first we always read a book. He reads 2 or 3 books, and then he goes, okay, I need water. I need a snack. I need this toy. It's like, no, dude, you're laying down. He's constantly, I need mama. I need dada. No, you're going to lay here and we're going to go to sleep. And so he's doing the same thing. He doesn't want to go to sleep, so he's going to find a way to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So same principle.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think a lot of people, I don't know how to word this exactly, but I feel like there's a lot of people that instead of seeing somebody with special needs and seeing somebody, they're seeing, I don't know what to do. It's like, no, it's just another person. They just communicate differently. They just do something differently, whether it be communicate or literally anything. And so I think, I don't know if that's something that you end up seeing a lot with churches or organizations, but I feel like that's got to be a big component to a volunteer being afraid. They just forget, like, no, you're not the parent. You don't have complete control. You're not trying to discipline the kid, but you do have access to listen and communicate and have a dialogue, however the child or teenager or whatever has their own dialogue, you know?
Absolutely. And let me say something about fear of stepping out, walking by faith. Let God use you as say, for example, a volunteer. The last church that we started a special needs service at, I'm going to give you an example of 2 different consistent. I mean, when I say consistent, at least once a month, and I think the other one goes twice a month as a one-on-one volunteer. One is a lady who is in her 80s. Okay. And this class is severely special needs. So far, what's coming to their class is kiddos that are severe, who are teenagers to older. Okay. So a lady who is in her 80s. And also, as one of the kind of rotation volunteers, is a just turned 9th grade, 14-year-old little girl who's a rock star. Probably weighs 90 pounds, but is a problem solver, a go-getter, and she'll probably be the first president of the United States, female president of the United States. Something. I mean, just sharp, but little bitty thing. And so a few weeks ago, I was checking out the class, and in there was those 2, because they're not always the same volunteers, but this time they were both in there. And I said, man, that's how big God is. Mm-hmm. Here's a severely special needs class, and you got a lady in her 80s, and you got a 90-pound 14-year-old, and they were and they were knocking it out of the park.
That's cool.
And so my point is, Could you have bad experience? I have bad experience all the time with my son. But mom and dad are right there at the sanctuary, 100 feet away.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be more than happy to come. And
What are the biggest personality traits that make a really good volunteer? Like you said, problem solver a couple times.
listen, it was funny. So, personality traits, problem solving is definitely one.
Mm-hmm. Calm, collected, I imagine.
You got calm, but calm not meaning like you can't be hyper, like loud and these kind of things, because it's still kids, or it's still,
slow
even
down
if they're 40 years old, if their intellect is a teenager, you can still. I would say a person that has a desire to make a heart connection.
Mm.
Let me just say this. Now, there's a young lady who lives in Albany, Georgia, who's probably 30 years old now. But when I met her, I was her pastor, and she was going into the 11th grade. So she was about 16 years old at the time. And she was our first babysitter. And she's never babysitted. She had no experience with special needs. My son is severe. And to this day, and my son has had, only God knows how many therapists, how many special ed teachers, how many of all these in his lifetime. Mm-hmm. To this day, that girl, her name's Hannah, is the best one I'm talking about at that moment, as a junior in high school, mm-hmm. was the best person I ever seen with him, other than his mother, of making a heart connection. Wow. He was always safe, and she was always getting on the floor, whatever it is, redirecting him, these kind of things, just making a heart connection with him.
Yeah.
And she's not loud. She's very quiet. She's little also. And so personality, I think somebody that has a desire not to be on their cell phone, but to connect, to be where your feet are perfect.
That's good.
So really anybody's qualified. Yeah. Anybody is to step in and meet this family's needs.
What would you say to the 84% of the churches that are right now in the process of, hey, I see that my church isn't ready for a family with special needs, and I need to make that change? What would you say to those churches?
This is what absolutely. I have some form of this conversation often. I would say this: you own where you are. Man, what I hear about some of these guys and their level of disability, we could not keep it safe. We could, right now, you own that. And then you say, if we had a phone call like that today, we would have to own that to that parent. We would have to say, I'm going to be proactive and find you a place right now in our area that can meet their needs, because unfortunately we cannot. But then I'm going to make you this promise, and this can be the fork in the road. And I ask churches this all the time. And I've been a pastor. I've pastored several churches. I would embrace somebody challenging me with this. I would ask them, hold me accountable and make sure I continue to give you updates, how we're growing in that area, that I will never, 6 months, 2 years from now, whatever the case may be, I would never give this answer to another person again.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's not good enough. I've got another friend that tells me, Tab, I wouldn't know what to do with who's in the ministry. I wouldn't know what to do with special needs ministry. And here's the sad part about that. He's telling me that today, he told me that same thing 4 years ago, and 2 years ago, and a year ago, and I'm afraid 6 months from now he'll tell me the same thing. That is not honoring Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
What honors Jesus, I need to own where I am.
Yep.
Please hold me accountable. And let me continue to email, hey, we're doing this. Hey, we're doing that. Can I ask you some questions? Maybe have you come in. It's like, could you help train our staff? Or these kind of, hey, just ask a parent a question, especially these parent questions. What about this room? Would that be safe? You think that would be, so you can see that, man, I've been changed by Jesus. Listen, I'm almost 50 years old. I'll be 50 in January. And I'll tell you what, I've really learned to respect people. And in the body of Christ is what James says, by my works, I'll show you my faith.
Yep.
this world, I don't care if you're talking about special needs or not, this world is so tired and apathetic of just talking Christians.
Yep.
They want to see something different than atheists. They want to see by their works, what's John 3:16? Was that not works? Was that not sacrifice?
Yeah.
And so, and that's what these
Paul
families
talks
like
about good
mine
works.
need to see. Yeah. So that's what I would tell. And you know what? There's a reason why 84% are on the sideline.
Yeah.
And when I challenge them, most of them stay on the sideline at this point. But
Wow.
I'm trying to light a little fire in a small percentage. And say, I believe God's big enough that he can use me. He used the donkey. I think he can use me. I'm a little bit better than a donkey.
I think there's a lot of churches that are purposefully not growing because they're comfortable where they are. And I think you have to be comfortable growing and being evangelical and wanting to see more families experience either a free life or a more free life in order to seek after finding a need for somebody else, finding a way to help somebody.
So Blake, it sounds like you're trying to describe 1 John 3:16. And that's where the fork is.
Yep.
You know, and I totally agree. And I think that's why you see a small percentage do anything.
Yeah.
And a large percentage would say, man, I hate it. And I think they're to a level that's true. They do hate it. And I wish we could like just snap our fingers and God would just make it all boom. That's usually not how it works, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, but I might help you find a place for you, but we're just not going to build it here. I want to share a quote with you from my wife's grandfather, who's been in heaven for 30 years. He was an evangelist named Manly Beasley Sr., and he said this, and I think about this often. He said, he based this quote is based off Hebrews 11:6. That without faith, it's impossible to please God. He says, any walk that is not a walk of faith is a walk of sin. So any walk that's by logic or whatever, and you know what the Bible says.
Yeah.
But you're not going to let God join God.
Paul said,
somebody else to join God. And, I think there's almost everybody, say there's 84%. Majority would say, man, I hope they find somewhere to go.
Yeah.
You got the 16 said, hey, we're going to be part of that.
Yeah. We'll be the hands and feet. And Paul says, what were we talking about? I lost it.
Okay.
What were we talking about just then?
We're talking about like Hebrews 11:6, and we're talking about, be in the hands and feet of Jesus and meeting a need and those kind of things. And, yeah, but but a lot, and listen, one of the things, so we do we do a few different things to kind of help the church. We talked about volunteer training. We start special needs services, and what we also help churches. Matter of fact, we're fixing to start phase 2, and phase 2 is continue. Phase 1, you're continuing to build up the volunteer base, and then phase 2 is let's come together. Let's start figuring out who do we know that are in the community that are teachers, principals, therapists, special needs families. Maybe they're volunteer coaches for Special Olympics. Those kind. Let's come up with those. How many out of that list? Who is unchurched in the area that falls in that list? And then we start coming up with a plan where let's go and make connections with them.
Yeah.
Because 80% of them are unchurched.
Yeah. Be strategic.
And that's got to be unacceptable.
Yep.
And, the Bible doesn't teach that Tab woke up one day and on his own said, I need to go get right with Jesus. The Bible teaches the Holy Spirit drew me to God, right? Yeah. And gave me the awareness and the longing to find God. I need to be the same thing. Let God use me to be the same kind of tool to help draw people to Christ through the resources and experiences I've gone through, which is our special needs families. So, I would really encourage people to, just sign up with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I get these questions sometimes. Man, if I see a special needs family at Walmart, what do I do? I don't know the answer to that because everybody's different. Maybe their parents are stressed out and they feel judged anyway, which is very common. They feel judged anyway, so maybe it's not good to approach. I don't know the answer to that. It varies. Let the Holy Spirit case by case lead you into that. But what
It says, if you know that it's sin and you do it anyway, if it's sin to you and you do it anyway, it's sin. When he's talking about eating different types of food and behaving like a Gentile or whatever. And it's like, if you know in your heart that it's not right to not create a space for a family with special needs, then that is sin,
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And
what would you say to kind of anyone listening now that's really interested in you and your organization? How could they get connected?
Excuse me. Yeah, so you can join us on Facebook, noahsministry.com. You can go to our website, noahsministry.com also, and kind of gives you a little snapshot of what we do. My phone number and my email address is on there, so you can reach out to me. We have families. We're working with churches in all different states. We're working with families from 7 different states right now, and so we always could step in. One of the things we do is, because it's very common, we help do research. Like, what is your where you are at, the state you're in? What's your legal right for your kid? And what steps do you need to do to get like on Medicaid and these kind of things? 'Cause it's hard to fill out that forms for a lot of different reasons. And we also help with research with IEP meetings. That's through your school system. That's their legal rights. What is in their IEP as far as the school district or system? That's their legal rights, meaning that whatever's in there, the school has to meet those needs legally.
Yeah.
And so we help with a lot of IEP meetings and these kind of things. Another thing that we do, matter of fact, we've got one coming up in January, is we do what we call caregiver burnout events. And usually what that looks at, like we have a church or somewhere host us, and then we open it up to caregivers to come, and we'll have 2 to 3 speakers that are caregivers, but also have like some kind of background. Also on top of, like, maybe they're an author, or maybe they're a nurse, or maybe they work at the local MHMR, or somehow, and we just kind of have an open forum, and we ask questions and these kind of things, and give them a voice and a place where they can ask questions and have like-mindedness and not be judged and be loved on a little bit, because you're not alone.
Yeah.
And John 3:16. So I would say that I've been challenged by this, and that's fine. And I do a little soul searching. And this is a message to all Christian dads that are special needs dads that are Christians, and to the church and whoever else. I was challenged one time about talking about special needs ministry, and they said, "Tab, we know why you care." And they're referring to my son. And so I had to go think about it. I didn't like that. I had to go think about it. Is that true? Is that true? Is that really? Because I know some dads that are atheists that are special needs. They think a lot of their kids too. So is my conviction at the same level as theirs? Because there's no testimony of the Holy Spirit power moving in my life through with them. And so I had to land where my conviction for this, my eyes being open to this ministry, is through my son. But my conviction through this is John 3:16. And that's why it's got to be about the body of Christ. That's why it's got to be about bigger than just my household. It's got to be, how do we do things to help the church and help families, and kind of be the farm system between the families and the church, and get them in there together, and these kind of things. Another thing that I started last October, once a month through video calls, we do a special needs dad Bible study. And it's just, we got guys, I think, from 7 or 8 different states that'll call in and come. And we've kind of been kind of like a little family. We're like our own little team. And some of them have like guys that are high function in their 30s. And then some have like 4-year-olds. And then, some are high, we're just all over the place.
Yeah.
But dads have a hard time expressing how they feel.
Hmm.
And expressing how, excuse my language, how pissed they are at people and sometimes with the Lord. Yeah. And we need to own that. We need to walk through that and have those kind of talks. And so that's one thing you could do. If you're a special needs dad or know one, all they have to do, if you have any interest, just checking it out, is send me, either text me or call me or email me your email address, and I'll send you the link and the time and date when we do it. And we always do it once a month. And you come check it out. It lasts an hour. And we just kind of walk through about what's going on, what's some best practices we've learned when we deal with schools, or, going on vacation with our kids. Yeah. That's another level.
Yeah.
So we try to, in Noah's ministry, we try to meet you where you're at, different areas.
It's powerful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think I know a lot of people will get a lot out of this. So thank you very much.
Hey, man, thank you. And tell my friend Don